stole our daughter's college money to fund her shopping addiction and wants me to take the blame. Plus updates. Original post. I'm stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and I don't know what to do. And the problem is, I can't discuss it with anyone I'm close with for privacy reasons. I've been with my wife, Andrea, 48 female, and my stepdaughter, Cassie, 17 female for 8 years now. I love them both to death, and Cassie's a very brilliant young woman. Recognizing her potential, me and Andrea decided to put together a college fund for Cassie so she wouldn't be crushed by debt. Over the years, it has amounted to over $200,000. Cassie is aware of this and is banking on it since she's trying to get into an Ivy League. To make a long story short, last week, I found out that almost $170,000 of the money was missing from the account. I freaked out and asked Andrea if she knew anything about it. She teared up and said that she had been spending the money over the years to fund her spending habit. I was furious, but I had a moment of clarity. I've browsed these subs enough to know that an affair was possible, so I asked her if she was having one. She adamantly denied it and offered any proof I needed. Social media accounts, emails, her work phone, everything. She offered to show me the receipts as well. There was nothing that popped out as suspicious, and the math from the receipts added up as well, so I let it go. But we still had the major problem of the money being gone. She described herself as a shopping addict, and the money from Cassie's account was just too tempting not to use. She didn't make excuses, but offered no solutions either. As stated before, I was beyond furious. She ruined Cassie's chances at going to college debt-free and has changed the trajectory of her whole life. I'd asked her to stay with her sister while I tried to figure this out. Cassie was concerned about why she was leaving, but we just said we needed a little bit of space. I asked Andrea to come back home yesterday, and we had an extremely long discussion about how to handle this. She stopped me from talking and asked a favor of me. She asked if I could take the fall for her. For context, her and Cassie don't get along for a variety of reasons, and knowing how independent Cassie is, she will probably leave right after college if not during. In fact, me and Cassie get along very well and she comes to me for a lot of her issues. Andrea fears this will permanently drive Cassie away and she doesn't want to lose her. I told her that before we even talk about that, she needed to acknowledge her mistake and own it. She needed to go to individual therapy. We needed couples counseling. She needed to find a shopaholic support group, and that I would be controlling the finances from now on. She said those terms were steep but fair. I said she needed to tell Cassie what she did, apologize, and hope for the best. She refused and said she could never lose Cassie. She said I could survive the mistake, but she couldn't. I told her that in order to even consider me taking the fall, she needs to agree to my terms. I don't know what the hell to do. The last thing I want to do is lie to Cassie, but I don't want Andrea and Cassie to split up forever. And the worst part about this whole thing is that Cassie's life is ruined either way, and I don't know how to replenish the money other than maybe borrowing from my 401k. Do you guys have any suggestions? Divorce is always an option, but I love Andrea despite her mistakes, and me dating at age 52 is next to impossible. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. Perhaps the reason they don't get along is because Cassie recognizes that Andrea is the type to do these kinds of things and guilt trip others to take the blame, instead of accepting what she has done and how it has impacted her family. Although it may be a tough conversation for Andrea to have now, it might show Cassie that her mom is capable of admitting mistakes and growing. Taking the blame for it and finding out later, in my opinion, might make things worse. Andrea is a widow, and Cassie took the death of her father very hard since she was so young. According to Andrea, a lot of their problems started there out of grief and anger. Then Cassie grew up and she's developed into a bit of tomboy. Andrea is a kind of a girly girl and doesn't relate to Cassie dressing up tomboyish. They don't agree on much. Cassie wants to be a physicist. Andrea wants her to do something that has more money-making potential. Plus, there's usual teenage daughter and mother strife. They have screaming matches that I have to intervene in. Dude, how did you not see that all the money was gone or that your wife was buying all this stuff? To answer your question, I had really nothing to do with the account other than contributing money. I just took her word for it. She showed me statements from time to time, so I had no reason to suspect anything. Plus, we have separate finances, except for a joint account for household expenditures and bills. Although Cassie's my daughter, Officially, I'm only stepdad, so Andrea handles all matters related to her finances unless Cassie asks me for something directly. Also, I wasn't a lone contributor. Her grandparents on both sides contributed as well as my own parents. I only discovered what was going on when my wife left a statement out in the open. I'm now believing she simply pocketed whatever money she got and doctored the statements. I knew the amount that was supposed to be there because a lot of the money came in the beginning. Her grandparents initially contributed $75,000. Mine contributed another $30,000, plus the amount that I added over the years. Don't take from your savings but hers. Make her sell all her belongings. I asked her to take money from her account to pay her back, but she said protecting her retirement is important to her and that she could take out a loan since her credit is excellent. Surprisingly enough, she doesn't run up her credit cards. Now I know how. Also, I'm hesitant to do this. I understand everyone wants her to fry for this, and I do too. However, if I'm to stay with Andrea, I don't want her to have to continue working until she's dead. I would like to enjoy our retirement together. My retirement is very healthy, plus I have a few investments and an inheritance. I could survive the hit. The most important thing is Cassie gets to go to whatever school it is she wants, and don't have to worry about it. But the comments are right. I'm not letting Andrea off the hook. She's going to pay for this, and she will be telling Cassie. Do not take the blame. Your wife admitting her mistake to her daughter is the only way your wife's addiction is going to stop. If she can't admit her wrongdoings to the person it hurts the most, she can't move on from her addiction. To add to that, taking the blame isn't going to improve your daughter's relationship with her mom. It's only going to create a situation where she feels that she has two parents that she can't trust or rely on. Don't take that away from her by turning yourself into another unreliable adult in her eyes. You're looking out for her best interest always, and she should know that. 100% this. Do not take the blame. Your wife made her bed. Make her lie in it. She did this to her own flesh and blood. Don't be her scapegoat. You love Cassie and don't deserve the fallout that will occur. Now for the updates. After everyone in here knocked some sense into me, I realized I can't lie to Cassie. I love her too much, and she deserves the absolute truth, no matter how ugly and hard it is. I will be talking to Andrea and telling her that we need to tell her the truth together as a condition of us staying together, or else I will initiate divorce proceedings and tell Cassie anyway. Also, as someone suggested, I don't need her trying to flip the script on me, so I'll record our interactions going forward. Thanks. Update 2. I want to thank everyone here for really opening my eyes yesterday. You all are right. I need to put Cassie first. And like I said, I'll be telling the absolute truth. Even if she gets mad at me and disowns me, at least I'll know I did the right thing. In addition, I'm going to pay for her college myself. I can pull money from a couple of places, such as my retirement and inheritance, so it'll be okay. If I have to live a little frugally during retirement and work a few extra years, then so be it. Cassie's worth it. I honestly doubt her mother is going to sell her stuff, so that's why I'm taking this route. As for Andrea, I've been criticized for wanting to let Andrea off the hook, so to speak, but it's easy to say when really deep feelings aren't involved. That being said, I don't think I can stay with her. What she did is horrendous, and she ruined our daughter's future for addiction. We had a long discussion late last night, and I threatened divorce unless she told Cassie the truth. She begged me not to do this, but I put my foot down, and eventually she agreed, but only if I agreed not to divorce her, and I helped to repair their relationship. I likely won't be doing either. She made her bed, so she can sleep in it. Now for the second story. I killed my dad and I don't regret it. Plus update. I, 27 female, never really had a great relationship with my dad, 55 male. When I was 6 years old, him and my mom went through a nasty divorce. It was so bad my mom had resorted to substances to help cope. It got so bad that she overdosed and had to go to rehab, and I was forced to live with my dad. For the first couple of years, it was great. I was his only child, so I was really spoiled. And it was like that until I turned 9 years old and my dad met his now wife we're gonna call Sherry. I never liked Sherry because I felt like she was trying to steal my dad away from me. Whenever I had a school function, I wanted my dad to come. Sherry always kept him from coming. I ran track and played soccer, and my dad used to always come to my little peewee games, but when Sherry came, it was he had something better to do. Sherry also has kids herself. She has 2 sons and a daughter. I kind of enjoyed having other kids in the house. because being an only child did get boring. I got along great with her kids. Me and her daughter was the same age, and her sons were 2 years older than us, twins. As I grew up, my dad started to grow further apart from me and got closer to Sherry's kids. He would go to school functions, games, recitals, parent-teacher conferences, anything that included parents. He would always show up for Sherry's kids and nothing for me. It gotten so bad that we had to have a meeting with my dad and a guidance counselor because she noticed how my grades would start to slip and how I never participated in anything anymore. And wouldn't you guess it, my dad didn't even show up to the meeting. I started to slowly hate my dad after that and wouldn't even try talking to him anymore. The breaking point for me was my 15th birthday. I'm Colombian, and everyone knows that in the Latin community, the 15th birthday is the most important day for a little girl. During my birthday month, my dad actually started to acknowledge me and we started to plan my quins. And I was the happiest I've been in years. We picked out the venue, my dress, the song me and dad were gonna dance to. We sent out invites, picked out decorations. Everything was going great until a week before the party. Everything was paid for. People already RSVP'd and everything was set in stone. Until my dad announced that we were going on a vacation the day of my quins. I asked him about my party, and he said he canceled it and wanted to go on vacation instead. I pretended to be okay with it and said okay and asked where we were going. Then Sherry laughed and said that I wasn't going with them and that I was going to stay with my grandma instead. After that day, I just decided to give up on any kind of relationship me and my dad could possibly have. I had no more birthdays, no Christmas gifts, and basically had to fend for myself, which was crazy because my family was rich and was really well off. I had to get a job in order to get new clothes and shoes, hygiene stuff, hair care products, etc. When I turned 18, I moved out and went to live with my grandma and cut off all communication with my dad and his family. I graduated high school and went to college for orthodontics. Years went by and I never spoke to my dad or heard any news about him or his family until I got a call from a hospital. It was about how my dad got into a bad car wreck and he was basically dead and was on life support, and how I was the last person on his emergency call list and that no one else answered. I went to the hospital and they told me the same thing they said over the phone and asked me if I wanted to keep the life support. And without thinking, I said no and said to take him off of it. He killed my spirit and so I pulled the plug on him, and I didn't feel bad at all. It's been years since that day, and I now have a husband with 3 kids that I love to death, and I still don't feel bad about what I did. Now for the top comments. I'm surprised you were even on the list, to be honest. Did he just forget to remove you? Also curious as to how or why no one else answered, as it sounds like the only person he neglected was you. Also, what was the fallout? The rest of his family had to find out at some point that you elected to remove the life support. Not going to lie, this is fairly dark. If he had a DNR, or the doctor said he had no hope, / was going to be a vegetable, then by all means cut it off and walk away. But was that even the case? It sounds like you still have some demons inside you that needs exorcising. You may want to talk to someone about that. To answer your question, to my knowledge, my dad had only 2 people on as emergency contact list, his mom and aunt. My grandmother died a few months before his car wreck, and my aunt was on vacation around that time. I was kind of surprised myself to find out that I was also on the list. Also, he was basically left brain dead after the car wreck, and there was really nothing they could have done. That makes more sense then. Also, he clearly never bothered to update that list, as not even his wife was on it, assuming they were even still together or not in the same car. The worst you did was to deny anyone who did care about him the chance to say goodbye, which if the way he treated you was any indication, it probably wasn't many. Keep trying to live your best. You may also want to edit in that point so people don't think you're some kind of sociopath. So what had happened to Sherry and her kids? Why weren't they on the list? What was their response to the decision? My dad had a will and got Sherry's kids' trust funds, and left some money for Sherry in the house, and split up everything else among some family members. I honestly don't know why they weren't on the list. It was kind of a surprise that I was even on there, and they were upset that I pulled the plug. If he was brain dead, you didn't kill him. In my opinion, that is the kindest thing you can do for them. I thought this was going in a different direction. What happened to Sherry and the other kids? Well, last I heard, Sherry got remarried. Her two older sons are also married and have families of their own, and her daughter is a single mom. I mean, where were Sherry and their kids when Dad was in the hospital? No one else answered. Did they explain? Did they care you made a final decision? They weren't on the emergency call list, so they didn't know. Now for the update. So a lot of people was wondering why I was the one that got the decision about ending his life support, and why Sherry wasn't on his emergency contact list, and it also got me thinking. So to give the strangers I let into my life a peace of mind, I decided to call up Sherry's daughter. She's the only one I still keep in contact with, and ask her if she knew anything about that. She told me that Dad and Sherry had gotten divorced like 2 or 3 months before his car accident, and no one knew because they wanted to keep it between the family. Nobody still knows about the divorce except for Sherry and her kids, me, and now thousands of strangers, LMAO. Also, I do want to tell you guys I did have a makeup quiz when I was in college. It wasn't as grand as the one I was supposed to have, but I really didn't care. I just spent it with the ones I loved dearly. Also, I just want to say for the ones who are calling me psycho, that happened a little over 3 years ago, and I am a totally different person now. I've been going to therapy since before that incident, and I have let go of any demons I had inside of me years ago. I've forgiven my dad, and I don't just focus on the bad things he did to me anymore. I only think about all the good times we had, and when he was a pretty decent father to me.